The saying goes, there are 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and whatever the person feels like adding as the third. Whilst the third spot is often up for debate, the first 2 seem to be set in stone. Death is definitely a certain, and we can't change that. But the second one is where things get interesting. Are taxes truly a guarantee? I mean, go online and you will see there are some very wealthy people who personally haven't paid $1 in tax in years. Whilst the majority of everyday citizens struggle every year giving up a large sum of their paycheck to the government, and people in their 20s complain that why wasn't I taught in school taxes, and large corporations hire the best accountants to lower their tax bill as much as possible. Paying tax is something every person will have to do at some point. But is there a way taxation could be changed? Introducing a proposition of a tax on wealth. A wealth tax may also be called capital tax or equity tax, and is imposed on the wealth possessed by individuals. The tax usually applies to a person's net worth, which is their assets minus their liabilities. Some countries that currently have an incorporated tax on wealth are Colombia, Norway, Spain, and Switzerland. But a tax on wealth can come with some issues, such as most of the wealth that would be caught up in this scheme is valued subjectively. We're not talking about piles of cash that can be counted. We're talking about equity, real estate, art, etc. Heck, even racehorses, things rich people own. How do you tax a racehorse? How do you tax equity that is constantly bouncing up and down? We have enough trouble evaluating real estate. There are constant fights over that. Imagine the battles that would occur as rich people argue how much their stock options are really worth. Imagine the manipulation, the schemes and the corruption, the rules written to benefit friends and hurt opponents. Imagine the incentives just to move out of the US and trade on some other nation's exchange. If you are interested in economics and finance and live in the United States of America, I'm sure you have heard of Elizabeth Warren. She is a member of the United States Senate and is notorious for her views and actions on the very topic of wealth tax. Vox did an amazing video on this very topic called A Better Way to Tax the Rich.
2 people who may have the same income but are in wildly different economic circumstances.
So to fix it, Warren wants to tax the actual wealth people have, but only for the very, very rich. Here's her proposal. All the wealth above this line, $50 million, would be taxed at 2% each year. All the wealth above this line, $1 billion, would be taxed at 3%. So if you have $40 million, you'd pay nothing.
Oh.
If you have $60 million, you'd pay nothing on your first $50 million, but 2% on the $10 million after that, or $200,000. And if you have $2 billion, you'd pay about $49 million. So what would happen if we imposed Senator Warren's tax? Well, only the richest 0.05% of Americans would pay this tax. But in 2016, the government could have raised about $200 billion from it. That could pay for a plan that makes public college tuition free 3 times over. It could pay for all federal food assistance programs, like food stamps, 2 times over. It could get close to cutting child poverty by 60%. These are massive programs that would help millions of people. And what makes that possible is the huge amount of wealth stuck here at the very, very top with the ultra rich. A wealth tax hones in on that.
Recently, Elizabeth Warren even got into it with the richest man on the world, Elon Musk. Warren has long advocated for raising tax on the wealthy by imposing a tax on the richest Americans' assets, rather than just their income. After Musk was named the Time magazine Person of the Year, Warren complained he should be paying more in taxes. Let's change the rigged tax code so the Person of the Year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off everyone else, she tweeted. Musk replied, "You remind me of when I was a kid and a friend's angry mum would just randomly yell at everyone for no reason," he said in one tweet. Musk is worth an estimated $251 billion according to Forbes' real-time billionaires estimate, but an investigation by ProPublica reported that in 2018, he and other billionaires paid $0 in tax. That year, he had little in the way of taxable income, given that he sold no shares of his stock and received no cash salary or bonus. But Musk will face a huge tax bill this year, a fact he pointed out in another Twitter response to Warren. And if you open your eyes for 2 seconds, you will realize I pay more taxes than any American in the history this year. He tweeted. Musk has been exercising stock options he was granted as his compensation in 2012, options that vested as a Tesla hit some pre-arranged financials and operational targets over the following 6 years. Although Musk hasn't paid tax on the fair value, he will pay up soon, and the bill will be substantial. That is because once he does exercise those options, the value of the shares he acquired, less the very nominal exercise price of $6.24 a share, count as income, and his bill on those shares will be at the top of the federal income tax rate of 37%, plus another 3.8% net investment tax on top of that, along with some undermined level of state income tax. You can see the idea of tax on wealth, as anything involving money can cause some conflict and separate point of views. What are the positives of implementing a tax on wealth? It would help eliminate tax loopholes. Wealthy taxpayers can take advantage of complicated tax planning strategies and tax loopholes that minimize their income taxes. A wealth tax would make it harder to work around these. It would reduce wealth inequality. I did a video on this very topic of wealth inequality. Feel free to check it out after to get a greater understanding of the topic and the ever-growing gap that is more and more prevalent, especially post-pandemic. The top 1% in America are now worth more than the entire middle class, and this is not just an issue in America. All across the world, leaders and people in power live lavish lives while the greater population struggles, and there are no signs of any positive changes emerging. Another positive would be middle-class tax relief. Over the last few decades, middle-class income, after taxes and benefits, have grown half as fast as those who are rich. According to an analysis from the Congressional Budget Office, some wealth tax proposals just don't increase the taxes on the wealthy, but reduce the middle class's tax burden. But as with any good things, there are also negatives that come with it. The negatives of implementing a wealth tax include the possibility of an invasion of privacy. The tax applies to everything you own, including stocks, bonds, your 401k, your IRA, your business, your checkings and savings account, your house, and any other real estate you might have, cars, jewelry, paintings, and anything you might collect, and even what you wear. The tax could also be difficult to administer. As said earlier, how do you tax a racehorse? How do you tax equity that is constantly bouncing up and down? We have enough trouble evaluating real estate, and there are constant fights over that. Imagine the battles that would occur as rich people argue over how much their stock options are really worth. Imagine the manipulations, the schemes, the corruption, and the rules to benefit friends and hurt opponents. Imagine the incentives just to move all of it out of the US and trade on some other nation's exchange. There could also be possible negative effects on the nation's wealth. There is a risk that wealthy individuals would relocate to another country to avoid the tax. Just as more than 42,000 millionaires left France before the country eliminated its wealth tax in 2018. Both Warren and Sanders' wealth tax proposals address this scenario by imposing a 40% exit tax on the wealth of anyone who tries to renounce their US citizenship. Another issue is double taxation. According to the Tax Policy Center, many wealthy taxpayers already pay corporate income taxes, individual income taxes, and estate taxes. A wealth tax would tax that income again, as if the business owner decided to hang on to their wealth rather than spending it. With all the positives and negatives accounted for, there also comes the proposition of should there just be an introduction for tax on wealth, but should there also be a change on the current tax on income? Overall, the idea of the tax on wealth, as all things come with its positives and negatives. What are your opinions on the idea of tax on wealth? Leave that in the comments, and leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video.